news this week. Meat causes cancer. The backlash. Aussie and Kiwi volunteers help rebuild Vanuatu. And popping in for a cuppa at the Death Cafe?
This is InFocus Christian News and Current Affairs.
Hello, thanks for joining us for Record in Focus.
It's great to have you with us. This week we're bringing you updates in Aussie politics, some tasty alternatives to salt, and you're introducing us to the woman of the future, Kent.
Yeah, that's right, Sybil. Scientists are worried she'll break out of their top secret facility and go on a rampage through Sorry, I've been warned about dad jokes. No, Rowena Gilbert was recognised at this year's Australian Women's Weekly Women of the Future Awards for her work with teenage girls, encouraging them towards fitness, better health and a positive outlook.
No laser beams then.
Pew pew! No.
But still, she sounds great. Time for the news?
Absolutely.
Last week's announcement from the World Health Organization that red meat, and particularly processed meats, are cancer hazards, has caused a stir amongst the meat-loving Australian public. The connections between meat and bowel cancer have a well-established body of research behind them, but that didn't stop the critics. Federal Agriculture Minister Barnaby Joyce downplayed the WHO report on ABC Radio, saying it's ridiculous to equate bacon and sausages with other Class 1 carcinogens such as cigarettes or asbestos. Amid the flurry of discussion, an announcement of alcohol research from the UK received little attention from the media. The study, reported by The New Daily, showed that drinkers who abstain from alcohol for a month showed marked improvements in their blood pressure, diabetes risk and liver health.
This is not new information for us as a church. We've known this since the 1800s. There is a very strong relationship between physical health and spiritual health. And here we talk about meat, but we also talk about alcohol and its influence on the mind, which destroys the wholeness of life that we as a church espouse to.
Teams of Aussie and Kiwi volunteers are making a real difference as Vanuatu rebuilds after the devastation of Cyclone Pam earlier this year. 53 Adventist church buildings, as well as schools and church workers' homes, were destroyed in the storm, but new construction is taking place in a number of different areas. The first church to be rebuilt is at Pang Pang, a village on the island of Efate. Overseas volunteers worked together with locals to get the building completed in time for its dedication service. The new steel buildings, designed by an Adventist builder in Brisbane, can be assembled quickly on site and are rated to withstand a Category 5 cyclone. Syrians fleeing civil war are facing a new threat to their safety in Jordan's refugee camps, undercover ISIS hit squads. According to Britain's Sunday Express, a number of aid workers and refugees say Iraqi and Syrian militia groups, including ISIS, operate as gangs within some refugee camps. One ex-jihadist said he was sent to the camp specifically to kill Christians, but was converted himself after witnessing the love of Christian aid workers in the camp. Claims are also being made that Christian girls are being kidnapped and sold as sex slaves, but most refugees are afraid to speak out for fear of reprisals. As hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers stream into Europe, Christians in Germany are at loggerheads over the ethics of evangelizing Muslims. Stories are emerging of hundreds of Muslims converting to Christianity. Some have been accused of doing so in order to strengthen their claims of persecution in their home countries. According to Religion News Service, one of the largest Protestant organisations in the west of the country has released a statement renouncing deliberate strategies aimed at converting Muslims. The statement says such strategies threaten social peace and are not in the spirit of Jesus. Evangelical church leaders have reacted with shock and have reaffirmed their commitment to spreading the gospel. Despite the debate, however, Christians of all stripes are continuing to assist the new arrivals. A new documentary reveals a disturbing organ transplant trade in China, where prisoners of conscience are executed on demand in order to fill orders for what has been described as a billion-dollar industry.
Murder seems to have been committed, perhaps tens of thousands of murders. The mystery, is why so few people seem to be paying attention.
I felt this was sort of a horrible thing and nobody really wanted to look at it.
An expert interviewed in the Hard to Believe film told ABC Radio last week that people imprisoned for their faith are targeted for organ transplants. Christians, Uyghur Muslims, and particularly followers of the Falun Gong meditation movement. Hard to Believe is being shown on public television in the US and will be released in Australia next year. In an announcement that has a whiff of the apocalyptic about it, scientists from the US say that if humans continue releasing CO2 into the atmosphere, parts of the Arabian Peninsula will experience extremes of heat that the human body cannot survive. Temperatures above 50 degrees Celsius have already been recorded in the Gulf states. The study, published by the Nature Climate Change scientific journal, predicts that by the end of the century there will be days so hot and humid that they'll feel like they're in the 70s. The predictions make the biblical book of Revelation's plagues sound plausible.
Now, in Revelation chapter 16, you have the prophecy of the 7 last plagues, which speak about the sun having tremendous power to scorch the earth. There's no question that extreme weather events like this are a sign that Jesus is coming back soon. However, we should not just automatically assume this is the beginning of the plagues. We don't know whether those plagues are going to be natural events or whether they're going to be supernatural events.
It's a surprisingly serious trend that's catching on around the world, enjoying a cuppa and a slice of cake at a death cafe. The Death Cafe brings together strangers and friends to talk about what some are calling the last taboo, discussing the practicalities of death, grief for those who've passed away, and beliefs about the afterlife. The brainchild of a Swiss sociologist, the Death Cafe movement has now spread to France, the UK, the US, and even New Zealand. According to stuff.co.nz, the Anglican Vicar of Waimate, south of Timaru, has had some success running monthly Death Cafe events during the week in the church complex and is experimenting with an evening as well as a morning time slot. It was a brave move and one that attracted a lot of attention. Jackie Green from Queensland's Gold Coast decided it would be fun to blindfold herself and offer hugs to strangers on the street, all for a good cause. Her Hugs for the Homeless idea had the aim of raising $1,000 for coffee and coffee cups for Catholic charity Rosie's. But Biopack, the company she approached, looking for a good deal on biodegradable coffee cups, was so impressed they said they'd make an ongoing donation of 100,000 cups every year. Rosie's coordinators say they're very grateful for Jackie's support and the company's. And that's this week's news. Wow, that's a brave move, isn't it? Hugging random strangers on the Gold Coast blindfolded?
I know. Well, look, it certainly succeeded in getting her some, or getting the charity some attention, didn't it? I do admire her spirit. Hey, stay with us. I'll be back after the break with Politics in Focus.
Signs of the Times, a magazine for a world on the brink. And this month in Signs, what Bible prophecies reveal, and it's more than telling the future. A Christian's responsibility to protect the environment. Do we possess souls that live on after we die? And protect your emotional well-being with our mental health special. All in this month's Signs of the Times. Subscribe to Signs today and change your life.
Welcome back, and joining us now from Canberra is the Australian Christian Lobby's Martin Iles. How are you, Martin?
I'm really well, thanks, Ken. Good to be with you.
Now, Martin, there seems to be increasing support for banning protest activity around abortion clinics. I understand the ACT has passed legislation to that effect. Is that right?
That's correct. Last week, the legislation was passed in the ACT. That builds on existing legislation in Tasmania, and also there's legislation under consideration in Victoria. The legislation makes it unlawful to communicate in a way that can be seen or heard on the subject of abortion within a specified distance of clinics, say 150 metres. And I think the concern is it may actually be unconstitutional if challenged, because there's a very strong freedom to communicate on political subjects implied in our Constitution since the case of Lange and ABC. So it'd be very interesting to see what the future of these laws is.
Okay. Is anyone actually looking at challenging that, or are you just speaking theoretically?
I'm speaking theoretically, but I wouldn't be surprised because it's an issue of freedom of speech, and there are workers outside abortion clinics for organisations like the Helpers who do sidewalk counselling, and they have in the last few years in Melbourne alone seen 300 or so babies born as a result of their counselling services. And I've read the moving letters of thanks from the mothers and with photographs of the children, and it's a beautiful thing. So there will be those who want to see that work continue.
Okay. Now, I understand that you've described these legislation changes as unnecessary. Are you saying protesters should be allowed to harass vulnerable women, you know, who, let's face it, may be making the hardest decision of their lives?
No, they shouldn't be able to, but existing police powers enable police to move on protesters or individuals who are harassing, who are being a public nuisance. And also the legislation is just clumsy. It doesn't just stop that kind of behaviour. It stops communication in general, full stop, and it reaches out and bans other things as well.
Okay. On to another topic now. The sad reality, of course, is that there are many Australian couples who are unable to have children. You know, IVF is incredibly expensive, and that's no guarantee of success either. Is it really surprising that so many couples are asking a third person to be involved as a surrogate?
No, it's not surprising at all. And look, I think we do need to sympathise with the situation of people, but it doesn't make it right to seek those kinds of services and to go down that line. I mean, surrogacy is an ethically fraught process. It involves biological links being broken. It puts three people into the family structure, and it's harmful for kids. There's groups in Australia called Tangled Webs and Anonymous Us and that, which are support groups for people who have been born by either anonymous donors or through surrogacy and so forth. And they struggle with it all their lives because of the identity crisis that takes place. So we need to consider the rights of kids as well.
Yeah, boy, it's a complex and emotive issue, isn't it? Hey, thanks for your time this week, Martin. Really appreciate it.
No worries, Ken. Always a pleasure. Thanks.
And now it's over to James and Sue for Food in Focus.
Most of us know that we just eat too much salt, and most of us have to reduce it. It's associated with over 20 health conditions. But the question I have to ask Sue is, what on earth do you replace it so the food still tastes tasty?
It's a jolly good question.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, James, I should point out that most of the salt people eat is actually hidden salt. It's found in processed foods. In fact, 75% of the salt is not what you add. But the 15% that is accounted for by what we add can also be successfully replaced by some other delicious flavour enhancers.
Yes.
So let's look at those.
See, I wanted to find out how. And just look at this spread today. It's just amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, for example, over there we have savoury yeast flakes.
Okay.
Now,
Yes,
they are a fantastic alternative to cheese, like Parmesan cheese, or other condiments which have that sort of cheesy, savoury flavours. If you're making something tomato-based or pasta-based, you could use savoury yeast flakes to get that flavour.
It has a slightly salty and savoury feel.
That's right.
Okay.
But it's not high in salt. It's very low in salt.
Okay.
The other really interesting thing that you can buy in health food shops are these interesting seaweed shakers.
Oh, can I have a look?
Yes.
A seaweed shaker?
Seaweed shakers, and people often
It's like a
associate
little herb.
seaweed with, say, the Asian culture where it is used in large amounts. But this is from Scotland, would you believe? And even the Scottish, centuries ago, used to use a lot of seaweed. Now, seaweed brings a lot of goodness to the table. It's full of iodine, which a lot of people are lacking. But as a flavour enhancer, it's amazing.
So it's not just for sushi, you just sprinkle it on your ordinary food?
No, it's not. In fact, you can cook with some seaweed called kombu, and that adds this amazing umami flavour. That's actually the fifth taste. And you can use far less salt in your cooking if you're using seaweed, or just sprinkle it on the finished product. And of course we have then what we call the acids. Things like lemon, fresh lemon, or cider vinegar, or any vinegar. If you want to grab that lemon, James,
let's go around.
Let's have it. Let's do an experiment. This is a low sodium, a low salt lentil soup.
Salt. Yes,
Give that a good squeeze of lemon and stir that in, because this is a really nifty trick from the Mediterranean.
I always like putting a lot of stuff, whatever I do in, but I better mix it around,
some sort of acid,
Okay.
whether it's vinegar,
Yeah.
give it a good mix and have a taste. Whether it's vinegar, it doesn't matter, whether it's lemon juice. But if you stir that in just before consumption, it
tastes good.
really enhances the flavour.
Folks,
It's
this
amazing.
is by Sue Rads. You go to SueRad.com, you might find the most amazing recipes. I'm going to try it now with the lemon. Okay.
And you
here
can
we go.
get away with using far less, or in fact no salt at all if you need to. Doesn't that just lift the dish? Yeah,
It just boosts it.
absolutely.
Very,
So
it's
that's
amazing.
another quick trick you can do just before serving up the food.
Well, I have a bit more soup. Just show us the, just show us the herbs there.
And finally, most people know that herbs and spices are an excellent substitute for salt, or a way to cut down. You can use them fresh, toss through salads or cooked dishes. In fact, in places like Vietnam, when you go and eat out, they put baskets of these fresh herbs in front of you, and people just rip them up and toss them through food. And they massively enhance flavour.
Well, there's basil and there's celery tops.
Yes,
and
you could use dill, you could use coriander.
Coriander's in there.
It's endless, and they're amazing. Or you could use dried herbs. And you can use dry herbs. Let me finish off by telling you about this lovely bunch here, which is very fragrant, and this is called oregano.
Okay.
Dried
Well, just let me
oregano.
get a little sprig out as I
And I'll
make a
show
mess
you
everywhere.
how they
Wow, folks.
rub it traditionally to get the little leaves off.
I've got a piece of
So you
paper
can
so we can
prep it
see it
for
on the
your-
camera.
for your jar. Yeah.
And collect it.
That's
I've
right.
never heard of rubbed oregano.
So let's
I can't
open
wait to see
that
what
up.
happens. Okay.
Often they'll just get newspaper.
Okay, and
It's not hard to do.
Yeah,
If you
okay.
buy it fresh, it looks like that. Well, it's actually dried, but freshly dried.
Okay, this is how
and
you separate
just
your oregano.
rub,
Oh, man.
rub. And can you smell that now?
Yeah.
It's releasing
It's
its
just beautiful.
volatile oils, and that is going to be so much
the
more
rubbing releases
intense
the oil.
Yes,
Okay.
more intense in flavour than any oregano that you're already going to buy in a packet. And all you do then is you can form a little cone
Yep.
and pour it into your little jar. And I tell you what,
Flavour
James,
Sue soup.
add it
even
to
more.
lentil soup, amazing. But any salad that you're having at
Yeah.
home, tomato,
Yeah.
cucumber, whatever, you need to add no salt. You just add some dried oregano.
Yep.
You add some lemon juice or vinegar and some good olive oil, and the flavour is just perfect.
This is practically a salt-free, low-sodium, lemon-enhanced oregano flavoured, rubbed by Sue.
Your body's going to love it, and so are your taste buds. And finally, if you're not used to eating a lower salt diet, it takes a little bit of time to adjust. 4 weeks a minimum, but even up to 3 months it can take for your palate to be truly retrained and to be just like it was when you were a baby.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sue. I'm going to enjoy this, folks. Oregano, lemon, salt-reduced soup. Just fantastic.
The media targets our goals with destructive messages. But is there an alternative? Yes, it's Gigi. Gigi is a great new magazine for teenage girls that uplifts good Christian values. Finally, a way to pass on our values in a way the teenage girls in our life will love. So give a subscription to a teenage girl you love today. Visit gigimagazine.com.au. That's gigimagazine.com.au.
Hi, welcome back. Well, we have in the studio today a very special person, a woman of the future who also appears to be a woman right now as well, Rowena Gilbert. How are you, Rowena?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, so you just recently won the People's Choice Award at the Australian Women's Weekly Woman of the Future Awards. What was all that about?
Well, basically it's an award that the Women's Weekly and Qantas run together, and it's to encourage and support young women in their endeavours or their companies in terms of they're trying to make a difference in the community. And I won the People's Choice.
Awesome.
For my program, which is called Strong Girl Fitness.
Wow, so there were like young entrepreneurs, young scientists and all this sort of stuff.
Yes.
But you're a teacher with a focus on girls' fitness, and you're up at Kempsey High School.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't want to be mean about Kempsey, but I have heard it's a little bit rough sometimes. Is that right?
Kempsey is definitely a community which is not without its problems, like all communities, but unfortunately there do seem to be some problems that are, I guess, magnified there. And what I found when I started teaching there a few years ago, that there weren't a lot of programs that were specifically for girls and that specifically supported girls, especially at Kempsey High School.
Okay.
There were a lot of rugby league programs. In the town there's a lot of boxing, soccer, but nothing that the girls could uniquely call their own.
Okay.
And so I started this program up. At that time it wasn't called Strong Girl Fitness, it was just called Girls Gym.
Girls Gym, yeah.
And it was just a small group of girls that met once a week after school and, you know, would do some training. And it's just grown from there.
Wow. Now, when I think back on my high school days, Rowena, I don't know if it was the same for you, but when I think of, you know, here comes sport, you know, weekly sport or PE, a lot of the girls suddenly seem to be taken ill and suddenly seem to, you know, need to,
there's all
you
these
know,
mythical diseases that
disappear
just
to
pop
the
up.
bathroom, and of course their friend needed to go with them to help them as well, and they were notoriously absent from sport. Is this still an issue in the 21st century?
100%, 100%. And that's something else that's really interesting that you bring up, because when I was teaching PE, because I'm a PE teacher, I was finding that girls they'd disappear. I'd be having discipline issues. They'd simply just sit down in the middle of the field when we're playing soccer and just refuse to do anything. And I thought, this is ridiculous.
What is it with girls in sport? What's the problem?
I'm not sure, but I think what it comes down to is that sport is hard. Okay,
it's physically challenging.
It's physically challenging, and obviously as a teenage girl, you've got other issues like a lot of body image, so girls might try and do their hair nicely for school or wear their makeup and, oh no, my makeup's going to run. But what I was finding was girls were hating soccer, they were hating basketball, and I was tearing my hair out going, well, what can I do to get these girls involved in physical activity? Because at the end of the day, as teachers, we're trying to educate children to be better adults, and if they're going to hate soccer in high school, they're not going to go and join a soccer team after high school.
Sure.
And so I started trialling running fitness classes in PE, and I was finding that suddenly girls who were, you know, notoriously disappearing off to the bathroom were coming back to class and saying, wow, this is awesome, can we do this again? And they had sweat running down their face, their lipstick was up where their mascara should have been, and and it was really, really cool to see that they were getting involved, and they you know, didn't seem to have a care in the world, but actually trying to improve themselves.
So when you say fitness class, what actual activities does that involve?
So we did a lot of CrossFit style stuff. So we started with a lot of body weight things because of a lack of equipment. So we'd do like a lot of lunges, some short sprints, not too far.
Okay. So push-ups, sit-ups.
Yeah, a lot of calisthenics type stuff, and we played around with a little bit of gymnastics as well, and the girls really, really got into that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow. And this is now called what? Strong Girls?
Strong Girl Fitness, yeah.
Yep.
And we've been really fortunate that we've been able to get a gym, like an actual weights room gym at our school, and so we've got, you know, equipment to use, and the Strong Girl Fitness now incorporates, we've got powerlifting, and we touch on Ollie lifting, Olympic lifting a little bit. You know, and we do a lot of work with running and body weight and gymnastics.
So Strong Girls Fitness is not just a label, there is actually physical strength involved.
Definitely.
Wow.
And the girls love it because, you know, if it ever happens that in PE class we do something like that with the boys, the girls love that they can actually give the boys a run for their money.
Okay.
In terms of their fitness, which is really, really exciting.
Is there something special, though, doing the program in a single gender setting, though, like most of the time?
I think so. Not only because, you know, the girls are, I guess, more likely to participate because they're not intimidated or embarrassed, but the other thing is as well, other issues come up in the program. You know, you've got a group of girls and issues are going to come up like body image, boys, and you can have a chat to them and you can build a rapport and a relationship with them, and you can actually, you know, influence them positively, much more so than if there were boys present in the room.
So it's more of a safe atmosphere to deal with other stuff that comes up. Wow, that's incredible. And I understand it's not just their fitness and their health that's improved, but you've also seen other positive changes?
Yep. So I've had teachers of some of these students who have come to me and said, you know, we'll call this girl Sally, for example. You know, Sally has really started improving in maths. She's really started trying. She's really started actually attempting things. And since she's found that because she's trying, she's getting better at it, which is really cool. Girls are starting to turn up to school more often. They're starting to turn up to cross countries and athletics carnivals because
which are the classic. Oh, sorry. Forgot to go to school today.
Mum said I didn't have to go, but they're starting to turn up, and not only are they starting to turn up, they're starting to win, and then to go to the next level and to win. And we've had girls who were previously inactive, previously did not come, and they've gone on to represent at regional and state level, which is really, really exciting.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, I understand that, you know, a public school is not the place for you to, you know, be evangelising, you know, for your faith, but you are a person of faith yourself.
Yep, definitely.
Does that come into your, I guess, your ethic of service or the way that you interact with these young women? Yep,
well, I think, because something that I strongly believe is that, you know, you should grow where you're planted. I'm a teacher, and I believe that my calling is to work in the public system because there are kids there that will never, ever, ever see a Christian unless, you know, there is a Christian teacher there, especially in a small town. So I guess, you know, my service or my mission is to you know, show these kids a glimpse of what a Christian or what Christ could be like. And it's, you know, really cool because, again, going back to the afternoon program and going on camps, there will be times where questions are asked and they go, "Oh, Miss, what do you believe in?" I go, "Well, you know, I'm a Christian, like I believe in God." And, you know, conversations ensue from then. And all I can hope is that, you know, I can plant little seeds that will eventually, you know, maybe grow and flourish.
Yeah, and I guess that's part of a public school environment, isn't it? It's about diversity and it's about experiencing different people with different beliefs, and you're in the mix, and it's great that you're there.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, thanks so much, Rowena. I really appreciate you coming in
that's all right.
to share, and all the best, and go harder, and all power to you.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back in just a minute.
Travel back in time to ancient civilizations through this bi-monthly magazine, Archaeological Diggings. Don't miss an issue. Subscribe online or ask for Archaeological Diggings at your local newsagent.
Hello, welcome back. We really hope you've learned something or been inspired by something you've seen on InFocus today. And now the challenge is, of course, to ask yourself, what are you going to do about it?
Yes, maybe you saw a Christian organisation featured on today's programme that you'd like to support. Maybe you've discovered an issue that you'd like to research in more depth.
Yeah, or maybe you'd just like to get fitter like Rowena and her girl power crew. Look, we just hope that Christian television isn't a passive experience for you and that you're moved to positive action by something you've seen on our program or the other great programs on this channel.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's enough pep talk for now.
I think so.
Thanks for your company this week. We'll see you next time on Record in Focus. God bless.
Pray about it.